Thank you and welcome to the show this morning. The topic this morning is institutional racism in African American youth, and we're fortunate to have with us to talk about institutional racism and African American youth, Dr. EKSanford from Tennessee State University. Dr. Sanford has been with us on many occasions, and he has given us excellent information. As a matter of fact, Dr. Sanford, let me welcome you to the show and to remind our audience that quite recently you gave us some information in reference to the nature of prejudice, calling upon Gordon Allport and others in order to lay a foundation for our real understanding of the nature of prejudice. And I believe that we're sort of are prepared to receive the same kind of information today in reference to institutional racism and African American youth. But let's look at your position, Dr. Sanford, and have you to give us some information about your background, your education, and some of the things that were important in terms of eventually bringing you to us, and then we'll get into institutional racism and the impact that it is having on African American youth.
Yes. Well, again, I'm Dr. EKSanford. I'm a professor of sociology at Tennessee State University, and I've been here now within this TBR system for over 15 years. I got my undergraduate degree from North Carolina Central University in Durham, North Carolina, and my PhD from Howard University, and my postdoc degree from Pennsylvania State University, State College, Pennsylvania. I've had a number of different research positions over the course of my career, but I've been very endowed with the opportunity to be able to teach on the collegiate level for a large number of years. One of my specialty areas is in that of African American youth, racism. I teach courses in the nature of prejudice. I also teach in health and wellness, as well as the sociology of education. And so I think our topic today is very poignant in discussing African American youth and how institutionalized racism is very much connected to some of the ills and symptoms of our youth today.
You know, Dr. Sanford, when you think about this topic, and I think that quite a number of folks talk about institutional racism, but let's have you as a sociologist explain to our audience this morning exactly what we mean by institutional racism. It's not just a phrase that we pull out of the air, but there's a real meaning in terms of institutional racism and how it's a part of the institutions. Talk about it from that perspective. Then by the next segment, we'll be able to get into the impact that this is having upon African American youth.
Absolutely. We have to understand that America for 244 years enslaved people of African descent here in America. And then there were 81 years of Jim Crow laws that led into segregation and then eventually desegregation, and with the civil rights movement brought about a set of laws that tried to improve certain things here within the American culture. However, with those 244 years and thinking about where we are today in 2013, you have to understand that the primary institutions that make up the society was institutionalized racism. That became a part of the culture. So in many instances of what we'll be referring to today, it impacts the subconscious of groups of people that live within America that belong to our institutions, such as education, such as the family, such as economics, such as the healthcare system, such as the laws that make up the society in which we live in. So when we think about the idea of unfairness, when we think about the idea of how certain people within a society may be treated indifferently and in an inequitable way in comparison to others, it could be institutional. And that's what we refer to when we think in terms of institutionalized racism. It's a very part of the fabric of the American society in which we live in. And in many instances, we operate in the subconscious, because many people will not say they are racist, but they actually operate because it is so institutionalized, and we just think that that is the way it is.
That's all part of the way we do things and the way things are and have been and et cetera. And so therefore they become institutionalized, and that becomes a part of the culture itself. And as you indicated, people start acting and reacting within that framework without ever thinking about what they're acting in reference to. Would that be sort of an assessment in terms of how very difficult it is to deal with this as an issue itself?
Absolutely, and that's why we as social scientists try to bring to light some of the issues that are certainly centered around that particular issue of institutionalized racism. For instance, Dr. W.E.B. Du Bois made a reference to the problem of the 20th century was the problem of the color line. And here we are in the 21st century and we're still dealing with some of the same issues. That's not to say that we haven't made some substantial changes and progress over those hundreds of years of being here in America. We have a President Barack Obama for a second term. But that still does not negate the fact that it's institutionalized, and we still have to confront that as an issue.
Very good. Of course, let us take this first commercial break, and we'll be back with our audience following this very, very short commercial break.